Live NFL trivia every Wednesday night on Twitch at 9 p.m. Eastern. Come show off your football knowledge for a chance to win cash prizes. Check the link in the description to find out more. And now, on with our feature presentation. What you're watching right now is a video clip of a field goal attempt from a game at Shea Stadium on December 20th, 1981. This is a field goal attempt that was missed by Jets kicker Pat Leahy. And now, what you're watching is a video clip of a field goal attempt from a game at the same stadium 7 days later. Does anything look different? Obviously, the teams are different and the field is different and looks way more beaten up, but that's not what I'm talking about. Do the goalposts look any different to you? Because amazingly enough, they are. On December 27th, 1981, the New York Jets were set to take on the Buffalo Bills in the wildcard round of the playoffs. Shea Stadium was ready for this all-important game. The fans were ready, the players were ready, the coaches were ready, and just about everyone was ready to see who would advance in the playoffs. There was just one small problem. The field wasn't ready. Because what you might not realize is that roughly 48 hours before kickoff, and 48 hours before Shea Stadium was about to host this game, Shea Stadium did not have a set of goalposts. Seriously. Jets officials were scrambling to find goalposts to use, and had to get incredibly creative to find a solution that would work. And this is the story behind the strangest field conditions in the history of the wildcard round. Before I talk about the field conditions in question, we need some context to understand why Shea Stadium had no goalposts to begin with, as well as what prompted all of this to happen. And before we talk about the wildcard game, we need to talk about the game that took place 7 days beforehand. It's December 20th, 1981. It's the final day of the regular season, and the New York Jets are taking on the Green Bay Packers at Shea Stadium. Of the 224 games of the regular season, this might be the biggest one of them all. The stakes are incredibly simple. The winner of this game advances to the postseason. The loser goes home. For the Jets, they started 0-3, and their season looked dead in the water. However, they proceeded to go on a tear afterwards, only losing 2 of their next 12 games and winning 6 of their last 7. Now sitting at 9-5-1, a win gets them into the postseason for the first time since the NFL-AFL merger, as the last time they made it, and the last time they even finished the season with a winning record, was all the way back in 1969. For the Packers, they were in a similar spot. They got off to a horrible start to the season, being 2-6 at the halfway point. However, they clawed their way back, winning their last 3 games and 6 of their last 7 to get to 8-7. Now, if the Packers win, they're in the playoffs for the first time since 1972, and for the first time in Bart Starr's career as a head coach. As a side note, to learn more about Starr's coaching career, click the card in the upper right corner. It's a true winner-go-home game on the final week of the season. It does not get any bigger than this. Sometimes, as we saw in practically every winner-go-home game in the final week of the 2021 season, you get games that go right down to the wire and become absolute heart-racing affairs that excite everyone watching. And sometimes, you get bloodbaths that are never close, and where one team dominates from the opening kickoff. This Jets-Packers game was a prime example of the latter, because on this day, it was all Jets, as they were able to complete their remarkable turnaround to go from 0-3 and maybe the worst team in football to the playoffs. Everything that could have gone right for the Jets on this day did, as in every sense of the word, they completely dominated and took control. At no point in the game did the Packers look like they had any chance of winning. By halftime, the Jets had found the end zone 3 times, scoring on a 1-yard touchdown run by Kevin Long in the first quarter, a 3-yard touchdown run by Bruce Harper in the second quarter, and a 47-yard touchdown catch by Lamb Jones later in the second quarter. At halftime, the Jets were up 21-3, having doubled Green Bay's time of possession, having outgained them 219-54 in total yardage, and having beaten them 14-4 in first downs gained. In the fourth quarter, the Jets tacked on one more touchdown when Richard Todd hit Wesley Walker for a 38-yard score to give the Jets a 28-3 lead. And like every 28-3 lead in NFL history, this was insurmountable, as the Jets prevailed by this score. The defense gave Packers quarterback Lynn Dickey fits all day. Green Bay finished the game with 84 yards of total offense, including just 39 net passing yards, as Dickey got sacked 9 times and went 12 for 33, completing just over 36% of his passes, with no touchdowns, 1 interception, and a passer rating of 32.3, which is worse than if he did nothing but spike the ball into the ground on every single play. As a side note, to learn more about the career of Lynn Dickey, click the card in the upper right corner. And after the game, and after the monumental victory, the Jets fans were ready to celebrate. There was not an empty seat in the house for this game. It didn't matter that there were 21-mile-per-hour winds, and it didn't matter that when wind chill was taken into account, it was only 9 degrees. On this day at Shea Stadium, every seat was filled, whether it was with a Jets fan, a Packers fan, or a Giants fan, since in a bizarre playoff scenario, the Giants won on Saturday in overtime against the Dallas Cowboys, and needed the Packers to lose in order to clinch a spot in the postseason. Safe to say, after this blowout on a cold day, spirits around New York were at an all-time high, especially for long-suffering Jets fans, who had not seen their team make the playoffs or finish with a winning record since the Beatles were still a band. And naturally, when the final whistle sounded and the Jets were officially declared the winners, even though the outcome of the game was never in doubt for the entire second half, the fans were ready to storm the field. Jets fans have had their history of being unruly. In 1979, a Monday Night Football game against the Minnesota Vikings was so disastrous that it made national headlines for just how many people got arrested in the stands. To learn more about that disaster, click the card in the upper right corner. And you can see it at the end of this victory, where the Jets and Packers were trying to get off the field and had to evade a bunch of joyous and drunk fans to do so. One columnist even wrote that the Jets had a harder time getting past their fans than they did getting past Green Bay's offensive line, considering the fact that the New York Sack Exchange had 9 sacks on this day. The good news was that, at least from all reports that I could find, no one got hurt, and defensive end Mark Estino appreciated the fan support and their enthusiasm, saying on the Jets faithful that stormed the field, "These fans are crazy, but I love them." But when CBS signed off, something happened off of the air that was going to pose a major logistical problem for New York's next game. Because in the midst of the entire celebration, there was one element of the field that was not protected. That element? The goalposts. Because by the time the game was over, by the time the fans had left, and by the time all the damage had been done, the goalposts were completely destroyed. Usually in a situation like this, the goalposts can usually be repaired. It takes some effort, obviously, but it's not an impossible situation. That was not the case here. Both goalposts were torn down and the damage was too severe to do anything. Some parts were bent beyond repair. Other parts had been carried away by fans. How they were able to carry a part of the goalposts out in freezing cold temperatures is kind of impressive in its own right. But regardless, Shea Stadium did not have any goalposts. And if this was the final game of the season, that's one thing. But with this Jets win, they were set to host the Buffalo Bills in the AFC wildcard game 1 week later. They had 7 days to get a new set of goalposts and get them ready for this all-important playoff game, and the most important game in Jets franchise history since the merger. Now you might be thinking that there's an incredibly easy solution here that makes this a complete non-story. The solution is to just order a new pair of goalposts. And if that's what the Jets wound up doing, then this is a non-issue, there's nothing too remarkable about this, and I'm not making this video. However, there was just one small problem. They physically couldn't order a new pair of goalposts. Remember that the Week 16 game took place on December 20th, and the playoff game was going to take place on December 27th. That's the week of Christmas. The people that make the goalposts are not working on the 25th, and they're likely either not working or they're taking a half day on the 24th. And the fact that the Jets needed 2 goalposts made things even tougher. As Tim Davey, the team director of facilities operations, noted on the whole situation, it was just too short a week to order a pair. So the Jets didn't have any goalposts and they couldn't order any. So the next option on the table was borrowing goalposts from other venues. First up, Davey crossed state lines and drove to Giants Stadium in East Rutherford, where he asked the Giants if he could borrow their goalposts for this game. Seems like a logical first step, since you knew that the Giants' goalposts were NFL quality. And if the Giants' season was over, then maybe this could have been the answer to the Jets' bizarre problem. However, because of the Jets beating the Packers, the Giants were still playing football. The Giants were still in the postseason. And because of this, the Giants still needed their goalposts for practice. Obviously and understandably so, the Giants are not going to get rid of their goalposts when they still need to use them. Repairing the goalposts didn't work, ordering a new pair didn't work, and borrowing the ones from the other NFL team in the tri-state area also didn't work. Time to go back to the drawing board. The next option was to see if there were any other venues that possibly had goalposts lying around, because time was running out, and obviously, you can't play an NFL game without a goalpost. With that in mind, Davey went to Yankee Stadium and saw what they had. Now you might be wondering why Yankee Stadium, a baseball stadium, would have goalposts, especially if they hadn't hosted an NFL game since the New York Giants were playing there in 1973. Well, every year, Yankee Stadium would host one game by Grambling State. In 1981, it was against Florida A&M, although usually it was against Morgan State. What you're watching right now is footage of Grambling's band playing at halftime of that 1981 game against Florida A&M. Because Yankee Stadium had a college game every year, the stadium had goalposts that were lying around. That's the solution, right? Just borrow the Yankee Stadium goalposts and this nightmare is over. However, if you've watched a college game versus a pro game, you know that the goalposts are different, and the college goalposts are wider. Obviously, you're not going to play a playoff game with goalposts that aren't regulation width. The NFL would never allow that. For that same reason, the Jets couldn't use goalposts from nearby high schools. So what were the Jets supposed to do? If they couldn't order goalposts, couldn't repair them, and couldn't borrow any, they were going to have to make their own. Even though they couldn't use the goalposts at Giants Stadium, there were some spare parts lying around that the Giants allowed the team to borrow. And even though they couldn't use the goalposts at Yankee Stadium, they could use the support structures from them. Then the Jets went to their practice field and dismantled one of their uprights there, and pieced it together with the spare parts from Giants Stadium and the support structure from Yankee Stadium to create a bizarre hybrid mix of a goalpost. And with only days to spare until the Jets were set to host their first playoff game in over a decade, the Jets successfully built their own goalposts on incredibly short notice. Unfortunately, much like the original goalposts from that game against the Packers, the Jets would not survive. When the New York Jets hosted the Buffalo Bills in the wildcard round, they were doing it on a field that, maybe to the naked eye, seemed no different. Heck, who knows how many people even knew about the entire goalpost controversy. But for those who were aware, the conditions were incredibly different. Instead of the game being played with the traditional Shea Stadium goalposts, this game was being played with the parts of the Giants Stadium goalposts, the support structure of the Yankee Stadium goalposts, and the upright of the goalpost from the Jets practice field. The biggest game that the Jets had played in over a decade was being played with a set of goalposts that, for all intents and purposes, was made from scraps. But it worked. The good news for the Jets was that there was no problem on this day with the goalposts. They were not torn down, they did not fall over, and they were approved by the league and the referees, and they were given the go-ahead to be used. The bad news for the Jets was that the outcome of this game did not go in their favor. In what turned out to be an absolutely insane playoff game, where the Bills led 24-0 midway through the second quarter before the Jets mounted an insane comeback, the Bills wound up winning it 31-27, as the team from upstate New York won their first playoff game since the 1965 AFL Championship after a huge interception by Bill Simpson as the Jets were driving down the field late in the fourth quarter. And as crazy as this game was, and as crazy as the finish to this game was in particular, the craziest part of the game might not have even taken place during the game itself. It might have been before the game, when the Jets couldn't order a new set of goalposts and had to drive all across the tri-state area, collect parts, and then assemble their own set of goalposts and transport them to Shea Stadium, all on an insane time crunch of less than a week, and all during a bitter cold holiday week. Considering the circumstances, even if the field itself looked completely beaten up, the fact that they even had a field to play on was nothing short of remarkable. Get your official Jaguar Gator 9 merchandise by going to jg9shop.com, and be sure to like this video, ring the notification bell, subscribe down below if you haven't already, as it helps the channel out a lot, and be sure to check out Twitch every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern for your chance to play NFL Trivia and win cash prizes, link in the description below. If you want to see videos like this condensed down to 60 seconds, then follow me on TikTok at JaguarGator9, and subscribe to 60-Second NFL History on YouTube. To see highlight videos of players throughout the history of the NFL, subscribe to JG9 Highlights. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.